I'm getting ready for this evening when I do my next brew and taste, maybe drink the first brew. What I did was I decanted the first brew, the one on the post. That means you pour the liquid off and leave the dregs behind. Now, when I got down to the bottom of that, I couldn't separate it completely. So the mason jar is what was left, and it continued then to settle. And you can see how much the gray at the bottom is the dregs, and what's above it is just ale. I'll probably pour that back in. I'm not sure. Now the glass on the left is straight out of a beer can, warm, old German, and it's bubbling a little bit, but you see there's no head on it, which is fine with me. The matter of getting a head on the beer is something I'll deal with later. I can do that, but I don't want to deal with it now. All right, this evening I'm going to return here, and I'll do some experimenting. Making ale, day 5, 5th brew. The blue cap is brewed. That part I did. It was all the same. The jar to the left of it is what was left when I decanted the first one, the first brew, the one on the right. I decanted it, which means you basically pour it off and leave the dregs behind. Now I couldn't do it perfectly because I would have brought a lot of dregs with it. Some dregs stayed in that gallon container for sure. But anyway, I thought you'd want to see that. The empty glass is waiting for my first full glass of homebrewed ale. The glass on the left is a 12-ounce can of Old German, basically the cheapest beer that you can buy. It costs 66 cents about. We'll compare them in a minute. What I'm going to do now, a difference is you notice that the caps have a white band. Well, the one on the right has a narrow white band. It's because I cranked it down. If there's pressure in there, it's been holding it. I haven't checked, so I'm going to crack that and take a sniff and see what happens. And I'll bring the camera along and maybe you can hear it if there's a hiss. If you've ever had apple cider in the refrigerator and just left it alone, there's yeast. The yeast is in the on the apple skins, so you don't have to worry about putting any yeast in it. And an apple juice is just disgustingly sweet. I guess that's probably the way the wort would be if you tried to drink straight wort instead of turning it into ale. So I'm going to get up here in a minute and crack that lid and see what happens. Okay, I'm ready, I think. What I wanted to show you before I crack that lid is that this, listen, if you can hear that difference, it suggests that the one on the post, the first one, the one with the lid down on it, has some pressure in it. Now let's see if you can hear it as a... No, I didn't hear anything. I'm going to smell it. It smells good, but it doesn't smell. I don't think it built up much pressure. So now I'm going to pour a glass of it. Later I'll explain. If I wanted it to build up pressure and build a head, I'll explain how I think I could do that. But notice that first glass, this is the commercial beer, it's dead flat. And that happened within about, I don't know, 2 minutes. And probably that head came from carbon dioxide pumped in there, probably. I don't know that for sure. Well, I'm going to do some moving around now. while I'm sitting here getting up my nerve to drink that, it occurs to me I should explain something. I posted on my Facebook, keep a barm, BARM. I have a bunch of directives I've put there. So what's a barm? There was a former student of mine, love that girl. She's as far as I know, she's a barmaid now in Bedford. And she didn't know. She said, "I assume you mean barn with an N." And I said, "No, barm. It's what that mason jar, I'm hoping, has. So you don't have to buy yeast. It's your supply of yeast, which you keep living for bread or for beer. And so we'll see how that works. I mean, that the ring that you see just above the liquid line on the inside of those gallon containers, that would probably work perfectly as a barm. It doesn't take very much. You just have yeast. You need to have yeast that isn't dead and will come back to life with some sugar and water. Now the dregs, I don't know yet whether or not those dregs in the mason jar will work as a barm. That I don't know. I plan to find that out. Still another thing I can think of to say. When I 5 or 6 times I took groups of students to Europe on tours, educational tours, and I always got to know the bus drivers, or tried to. And I remember one of the bus drivers, he was German. There's a lot I could tell about him. But anyway, we were talking beer, and he was telling me that I should try Weissbier. And I had never heard of it. Weiss to me means either white or wheat. But he couldn't explain it. It was different. I think he might have even bought me a draft of Weissbier. And it looked like that beer, that ale that I've brewed right there. It tasted very different. I wasn't so sure I liked it, but I'll have to explore how that is different from what I'm brewing. Well, I've stalled long enough, but one thing I got to say before I drink this is that when in an occasion like this, I think of Romeo's comment just before he drank the poison, thinking Juliet was dead. He says, "Here's to my love." And I think about that every time I have a possibility that Montezuma's revenge may visit me. Montezuma's revenge is no friend of mine. Anyway, here's to my love. Not bad. I have the feeling I could drink a lot of that. It's very different. How to explain? It's not bitter. We'll see. There's no hops in it. It's thin. Since there's no carbonation, virtually no carbonation in it, it goes down like water. Interesting. I think it's good. It's not. It wouldn't be an acquired. Now remember, this is small ale. This is not strong. This is very weak. It isn't really an acquired taste, I don't think. Like the first time I ever drank beer, I think I remember thinking, why do people drink that? There's not that feeling at all. It's just a little bit like water. But remember, back in the day, this would have been safe water to drink as opposed to water that could kill you. That went down pretty smooth, I'll tell you. It's different. I don't know how I can explain it. The bitterness is not there. That's probably just the lack of hops. I don't know. But when I look at that, to be fair, equal treatment under the law, I'm going to now turn to the beer that's there. But, I think I'd rather continue with the ale. I don't know. Of course, we'll have to see if Montezuma is waiting to ambush me in the night.